It looks like a normal North Casper home. You've got a picket fence as well as toys and a playground in the front yard, but it's what's inside this home that would have any parent worried. You can see that's not the case right now, as the Tate Pump House sort of has beachfront property. You are missing out on a lot of fun here. It smells kind of interesting because we're right by the bulls here. For those who are eating in, I mean, there's a 1 in 2 chances that Grandma's blueberry pie isn't all hers. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Joshua Zuber. Casper police say they have 1 or more suspects in custody who could possibly be in connection with the recent rash of robberies in Natrona County. That's not exactly very large, that's less than 3 feet. But out here in the studio here, I'm going to show you the actual leg space. Right now this is a standard coach cabin seats, just kind of a little demonstration here. 2 of our newsroom chairs. Like you and I, we weren't really lucky enough to have a carport or a garage, so we kind of had to use one of these this morning. Winter has arrived, right? The National Labor Relations Board is involved. Tracy Potts has details. She's live in Washington. Tracy, this isn't the first time, of course, that we've heard about someone getting fired over something they posted online, but now it sounds like bureaucrats are getting involved. This is the sound of the twisted metal of a charter bus being pulled out of the trailer of an 18-wheeler on Interstate 25 just outside of Casper.
I had woken up and everybody was screaming and yelling and I didn't know what was going on, so I stood up and I had him in my arms because he was asleep on my chest. And that's when the bus hit the 18-wheeler and he flew out of my arms and he landed 3 chairs forward, and I was yelling I couldn't find my son.
The wreck left the driver of the bus dead and sent 30 of its 47 passengers to 2 local hospitals.
All were treated, released, except for 4 or 5.
Wyoming State Police say the accident happened around 1 a.m. after the tractor trailer somehow ended up on its side, blocking the northbound lanes.
For some reason he swerved off into the median, swerved back onto the highway, rolled his truck 1/4 of a turn. It landed on the passenger side in the roadway. The bus was northbound, 2 minutes behind him. Apparently didn't see the semi-trailer and ran into the semi-trailer at 60 miles an hour.
Wyoming is known for its strong, gusty winds. However, authorities say weather doesn't look to be a factor in the crash, and the driver is unlikely to face any charges unless drugs or alcohol are involved. Construction on the Set-Free Church on CY Avenue and Robertson Road is almost complete.
It's just amazing to see how God is bringing this to life.
Typically, you'd think churches are pretty welcomed in most communities, but residents in this Casper neighborhood, Paradise Valley, say they don't want it.
I really fear for the safety of my kids.
They say they're concerned about safety because some of those moving into the church are expected to be convicted criminals. They also say one of their biggest concerns is the proximity not only to their homes, but their children's bus stop.
There's a lot of children that walk past here.
However, the pastor of the church says not to worry.
We are a church. We are not a halfway house. We are a church with a live-in discipleship.
That live-in discipleship is where the controversy lies. The fact that ex-criminals could possibly move in next door. But John says he's an example of why residents shouldn't fret.
I was born and raised here in Casper, and extensive criminal history from the time I was a young child to adulthood.
And John says because of God, he was able to turn his life around. Regardless of how successful John thinks his ministry will be, as of right now, neighbors say, not in my backyard. When it comes to making whiskey, time is of the essence.
We have to put it in the warehouse and store it. According to the federal guidelines, it has to be at least 2 years old to be called a bourbon whiskey.
That means it will be a while until the first bottle of Wyoming whiskey hits the liquor shelves, but that doesn't mean production is at a standstill.
That is barrel number 1,000 right there.
How they got to 1,000 barrels is quite a process, starting with the grinding of the grains, then it's off to the cooker.
The corn, wheat, and the malted barley are all cooked together. The coils that you'll see are the cooling coils. The way it's cooked is from steam coming from the very bottom.
Next, it must ferment, the raw liquid poured into these giant fermenting vats. This is where the bourbon starts to run through a gamut of flavors.
This is our mash coming from the cooker. And at this point, it tastes like cereal.
Once all the mash is there, yeast is added.
And we never heat or stir it. It works all on its own. And at this point, it tastes like a warm beer.
The following step is where the alcohol part comes into play.
This still is one of a kind, and it's made especially for Wyoming whiskey.
The unfinished whiskey is poured into these white oak charred barrels, which end up weighing about 500 pounds in a warehouse where they age for years. Steve and Donna say it will be interesting to see what the wild Wyoming weather does to the maturing process.
High altitude and the low humidity, maybe it'll age a little bit faster out here.